Something terrible happened on Tuesday night, and I'm sure you're all aware of it by now. Donald Trump got the crap beaten out of him in Wisconsin, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Wisconsin's a different type of state. It's got some conservatives in it, but overwhelmingly, the state is full of moderates, and this is the first moderate state where Donald Trump got beaten, and it's the first primary state that's a moderate state where Donald Trump got beaten, with the exception of Ohio, which we could talk about as well. I believe there was fraud there too, but Wisconsin, the people in Wisconsin overwhelmingly vote moderate and have chosen moderate candidates. Like in 2012, for example, they chose Mitt Romney over Rick Santorum. 44% voted for Romney, 37% voted for Rick Santorum. When you add all the votes together, including the lesser candidates, you came up with 412,000 total votes. So 400,000 people voted in 2012, roughly, and it broke overwhelmingly for the more moderate candidate, Romney, versus Santorum. In 2008, you had a slightly different situation. You had John McCain, which, again, is the moderate, and Mike Huckabee, which would have been the more conservative of the two. Total votes right around 400,000 in 2008 as well, 402,700. And all this stuff can be verified, and I'll provide the links to the relevant articles. But 400,000 total votes, 54% to John McCain, 36% to Mike Huckabee, or 37% to Mike Huckabee. Actually, to be fair, 55% to John McCain, 37% to Mike Huckabee. So in both 2008 and 2012, you have two very strong trends emerging. You have the more moderate candidate winning by usually about 15 points. Well, almost 20% in 2008 and only 8% in 2012. So I guess there was more of a spread there. At any rate, you didn't have the conservative candidate winning it in either of those elections. If anybody wants to debate that John McCain is more conservative than Mike Huckabee or Mitt Romney is more conservative than Rick Santorum, bring it on. Because everybody should see on face value that Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee were the conservatives in those two races. That's the first thing, the trend towards the more moderate candidate in both elections. And then the second thing is the 400,000 number. I mean, 400,000 GOP faithful go out and vote during the GOP elections, the GOP nomination elections in presidential election years. Well, this race, we saw Ted Cruz get 527,000 votes, and Donald Trump get 383,000 votes. And the total votes was about 1 million. And I'm not including John Kasich, but I didn't include John Kasich in this graphic, but perhaps I should have. Some people were confused by my math because it doesn't add up to 100%. Well, Kasich got around 15%. Off the top of my head, around 150,000 votes. So there's that. So we're expected to believe that 2016 not only did Wisconsin break for what most people perceive, all of talk radio perceives as the most conservative candidate, Ted Cruz, who in nationwide polls does about 20%, 25% nationwide. They broke around 50% in Wisconsin for Ted Cruz. Now, I can believe Ted Cruz doing 50% in a place like, what was that? Stay with all the Mormons.
Utah.
Yeah, I could believe him breaking in Utah heavily, or breaking in some kind of, in Iowa even possibly winning Iowa. If he could make it stick that he's the most conservative candidate, he might have done well in Iowa. He didn't he didn't make it stick in the South, though. I mean, traditionally in this race, up until the last few weeks, the most conservatives have been breaking for Trump, and the moderates have been breaking for Trump. But they want us to believe that he won over the moderates and the most conservative in this race. That's the first thing they want us to believe, which to me is a difficult sell, especially since you have a state with so many moderates. And the second thing they want us to believe is that 600,000 people that have never voted or haven't voted in at least 8 years, 12 years. They didn't vote in 2008 and they didn't vote in 2012. 600,000 people came out of the woodwork and voted for Ted Cruz. I mean, they decided, I'm going to get up and I'm going to vote for Ted Cruz. Where the fuck did these people come from? I mean, they didn't show up at his rallies. Donald Trump shows up in locations and 10,000, 20,000 people show up, and Ted Cruz shows up in locations, and, there's small venues. It's rotten, and it's a stupid story, and it's dumb, and it's never been explained, and perhaps somebody needs to try to explain that. Here's what I believe happened. I believe the voting machines were rigged, and they decided in advance what they wanted the vote to end up looking like, and they just did it. And they decided that they wanted the story to be Ted Cruz walloping Donald Trump in Wisconsin, and they were going to come up with all the reasons why, the women abandoned Trump and this and that and the other thing. The only problem is they had to deal with these lines and these crowds, and they had to deal with international reporters that saw that the voter turnout was 40% higher, was 40% of the total population, the biggest voter turnout in Wisconsin history. Biggest voter turnout in Wisconsin history. They had to deal with that fact. And so when they wrote the headline, what they wanted to make the race look like, I don't think they really imagined that there would be a 130, 140% increase in total number of votes. I don't believe that they saw that there would be an extra 600,000 people that they were going to have to explain. And so now you've got the problem where, Rick Santorum appealed to 290,000. John McCain, Mike Huckabee appealed to 151,000. These are the conservative candidates. And now they want you to believe that Ted Cruz, who many people find the most disgusting, conservative, religious whack job, that somehow these people in Wisconsin just put all that away, held their nose, brought their friends out who've never voted in their lives, and Ted Cruz gets 530,000 votes, more than the total vote count in 2012, more than the total vote count in 2008. I'm going to tell you what it would have looked like if Donald Trump had lost this election. You ready? There would have been about 400,000 people showing up, just like in 2008 and 2012. Ted Cruz would have gotten about 380,000 votes, and Donald Trump would have gotten like 100,000 votes. I mean, it would have been, I mean, it would, but the total would have been limited to 400,000. You wouldn't have seen 500,000 people show up. If 500,000 people show up, Ted Cruz is in a little bit of trouble, because now you got an extra 80,000 people. Where'd they come from? If 600,000 people show up, well, now you're looking at, getting to a point where there's 200,000 people you got to explain. So Donald Trump's numbers have to be at least 200,000 when you go up to 600,000. When you go all the way up to 1 million, 600,000 new voters, people that have never voted before, And to say basically that Donald Trump got a small fraction of that Ted Cruz that somehow has excited people that have never been excited before. I'm sorry, you know, I think Rick Santorum's a stronger candidate than Ted Cruz. Appeals to more people. You know, I personally find Rick Santorum odious. Mike Huckabee, you know, same thing. 37% is what the conservatives do. And 37% of the 400,000 pie. That's the maximum. The maximum votes Ted Cruz could have gotten on a good year if he was to beat Trump should have been somewhere around 300,000, maybe 350. You know, that leaves Donald Trump with 60% of the vote. And I've heard exit polling that has been suppressed at somewhere around 60%, and it makes sense. You know, 60, 70%. And that's assuming that Donald Trump didn't get any of the traditional 400,000. What we've seen here, folks, is disgusting. It's not even a plausible story. It's not even something you can write a headline for because it's just so ridiculous. What is the headline? You know, Ted Cruz wins Wisconsin by creating voters out of thin air. I mean, we know Donald Trump has created voters. We've seen it in state after state after state. Democrats, independents. We've seen voter registrations go way up. We've seen elections go, you know, doubling in size. You know, we've seen that. People coming out of the woodwork that haven't voted. There's a 92-year-old woman in Tennessee that voted for the first time. This is what we've seen with Donald Trump in state after state. And for them to say that somehow all these people suddenly changed their mind at the last minute and voted for Ted Cruz, who, you know, a lot of people, there's 30% of the Republican Party that says, you know what, I don't think I'd vote for a Canadian. You know, I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. It's not even plausible. The other thing I want to point out, too, is Donald Trump got 383,000 votes that they admit to. 383,000. That's more votes than Mitt Romney in 2012 and John McCain in 2008. How do you lose with those kind of numbers? Even that's implausible. I'm going to play this little video here, and we'll talk about it in a minute about voter fraud. It's a clip from a movie called Hacking Democracy. And chances are you've seen it floating around the web. I started publishing this with a post I made a couple days ago, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, I just want to run this little video.
Well, let me tell you what we're going to do today. We have constructed a mini election, but Harry Hersey, as you have served as a technical advisor of how to do this, we're going to ask you to remain outside. After you, let me introduce you to my election staff. To ensure that we've not prepared some sort of a device that has been pre-rigged, pick the number, and then we'll grab that unit, and that will be the device that we will count the ballots on.
I just feel like this is the one.
Okay, and the winner is unit 15191.
5191.
What we have here is a programmed optical scan ballot. There is only one question on this ballot. Can the votes on the Diebold system be hacked using the memory card?
I have only touched the memory card, not the other parts of the Diebold election system, which is going to be used today. Only the memory card.
And I can certainly speak for myself and Harry, and that we're going to vote yes.
All right, then let's have the rest of us vote no. Two individuals, Hugh and Harry, will be voting yes. The rest of us will be voting no. And then we'll scrutinize the ballots afterwards to ensure that that is indeed the mark.
I will say that I'm wrong and Diebold is right, and I'm going to say no, they cannot be hacked.
It's impossible. So I'd vote no. I'm going to film myself voting. Excuse me.
I'm going to mark this ballot no. Dr. Thompson?
I am going to mark this ballot yes. Seen some pretty concerning things.
Well, it's down to you. You're the last voter, Harry.
All right. I think it could be. So I vote for yes.
You will be the second yes.
All right, Ian, here is the memory card I have touched.
Okay. Now, this is the only piece of Diebold equipment that you've used.
That's correct.
Well, thank you. Let me take your ballot in. This card will go into this slot. The next activity that the election worker does on the morning of the election is turn the machine on, making it live to receive votes. When you do that, this machine will produce what is called a zero total tape. The machine is going through a self-test analysis, and then it'll spontaneously turn on. This is Harry's card that is telling us that there are 0 votes stored in the memory. Okay, let me get the ballots. Let's insert a yes ballot. We're going to put in another no. 7. And the last no ballot, 8. Placing the ender card in this device and telling it to turn off its counting function and do its reporting function will now cause the voting machine to print out a tape reading the number of votes that it had just read. Oh my.
Oh no!
What is it? What is it?
7 yes, 1 no.
Oh my God!
Oh my gosh. Let me see.
Here's the tape.
7 people said it could be hacked.
And we put through 6 and 2.
6
no's
no's
and
2
2
yeses.
yes. Oh my gosh, do you know what this means?
How do we know that Harry didn't just change the report and the votes themselves on the memory card are still correct? If that was the case, when they go into GEMS, the results would be different, isn't that right?
I mean, the only way to know that is to read them into GEMS and to check the vote totals.
See what GEMS says. So should we do that?
I think we should, because I want to confirm for my own analysis, is this just a superficial
Right, that's a good
hack? In other words,
question.
did we just change the words on this paper? And we will upload this memory card if I had not seen what was behind this, I'd have no reason not to. I would have certified this election as a true and accurate result of a vote.
Susan, what does this mean for you?
Makes me cry. I'm sorry, but it does.
Why? Why?
There's so many reasons. The reasons because there are people out there who are giving their lives to try to make our elections secure, and they're being called conspiracy theorists and technophobes, and these vendors are lying and saying that everything's all right, and it's not all right. And I'm crying because it's I'll quote somebody that I know who said that it's as though our country is one country pretending to be another country. How can this be happening to our elections? This really does affect me.
I don't know exactly how to describe what I saw here. I think we, as election officials, need to be a little bit more demanding from the vendors as to the technical specifications of this equipment. The vendors are driving the process of voting technology in the United States. I would much rather, at this point, I think, focus on allowing citizens to select technology that satisfies their needs.
What you see in front of you now is a meme or an information graphic, whatever you want to call it, about what I saw as the truth about Wisconsin, which is basically that these invisible people showed up and voted for Ted Cruz. People that weren't showing up at his rallies, people that just weren't there. They showed up. 527,000 of them showed up and voted for Ted Cruz when Rick Santorum couldn't get over 290,000. Somehow, Ted Cruz doubled Rick Santorum's support. And like I said before, Rick Santorum was probably a better candidate than Ted Cruz in a lot of ways. And this is in a moderate state. So I made this graphic and I put it up, and I put it up on my blog, and I wrote a few things with it, and I published it, and along with the that clip you just saw on hacking democracy. And something magical happened. I mean, it went viral. It went crazy, and people were sharing it, and people were sharing it, and people were sharing it, and people were pulling out pieces and sharing those. So it had started conversations that were bouncing all over the place. And Facebook, on the second day, pulled a lot of these posts, these independent posts, down. They pulled them out of the keyword search, but they seem to have put the keyword searches back, although some of the posts I saw the other day are no longer there. That's the first thing they did. The second thing that they did, they pulled my Facebook page, Trumpgasm, down. That's the second thing they did. And then the third thing they did is they've programmed into their system to block this exact image, which to me is kind of crazy. I mean, you look at the image right there. Is this hate speech? Is this racial? Is this racist? I mean, is it pornography? All it is it's an idea. And for them to ban an idea in the United States of America, it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary. The idea that Facebook could ban this image. Wow. We've been reading, I'm sure you've read, how a lot of these companies, in order to do business with China, they have to insert into their code the ability for the Chinese government to shut anything down anytime they want to. And you don't like to think that that technology would be used against American citizens. Well, I'm here to tell you, it has been. Somebody powerful up has shut that image down. Somebody doesn't want you to know what this image is speaking. And it's a fact. I've got a link to the image right down below. You can, grab the image, cut and paste it, try to insert it onto Facebook and see what happens. I'm also curious as to whether you could shrink this image and maybe rename it and see if that would work, or if their software is smart enough to stop it. Let me know in the comments below what your results are. But that's pretty scary. So To me, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, if you're just an American, the fact that Facebook would ban this image should terrify you. I mean, it means things are pretty far gone in this country already. If they can ban this image, and if they can pull my Trump supporter page down because of this image, I mean, what the hell's going on? You know, you may not agree with what I put up here, but there's no way you could say that this is hate speech, which to me is a dubious thing anyway. You should be able to say whatever you want as long as you're not inciting people to kill other people, but that's another argument for another time. But this is definitely not hate speech, and it's definitely not illegal speech, and it's definitely not pornography. So it's definitely not something that they should be in the business of pulling down.
It is definitely facts. It is definitely obtainable facts. And
it's facts mixed with opinion. You know, in my opinion, there's no way that a moderate got beaten by a conservative in Wisconsin. You know, it hasn't happened since, well, it hasn't happened. I don't think it's ever happened. You know, even in the Bush-Reagan election, Bush tried to sell himself as the true conservative. I mean, to go back that far. But Wisconsin breaks for the moderate. And that's a fact. But it's my opinion that they broke for the moderate again. So that's an opinion, and you know, and it's my opinion that there's no way Ted Cruz, who has no charisma or personality, outdoes, you know, Mitt Romney. I mean, Mitt Romney was a dominant force in 2012. He's charismatic, attractive. I mean, you know, Ted Cruz is not an attractive dude. He just isn't. You know, Mitt Romney appealed to women and independents. You know, Ted Cruz is disgusting to so many people, and so it's opinion and facts mixed together. But whether you agree with it or not, I don't think anybody could come up with a reason why this image should be banned from Facebook. If you can come up with that reason, besides it might cost them money to put the image on their servers, and they have a right as a private enterprise to decide what goes on their servers or whatever. Well, you know what? That argument is okay, except for the fact that, you know, if it was a kitten video, you know, it would take up a lot more server horsepower. And no, I believe if they claim to be a medium for people to share information, they should be in no business in taking down an image like this. You know, I thought I was going to end it a second ago, and then I look at my notes, and I've got a few more things I wanted to talk about. I just want to stress a few things. One is if they didn't hijack this election, if this didn't happen, this image never would have gone viral in the first place. If this didn't happen in Wisconsin, the people that saw it wouldn't recognize the truth immediately and want to share it. You know, every day we are pummeled with information. And I've put up some great speeches by Donald Trump. I've put up some great images, great memes. I've put up some neat stuff. And people will look at it and they'll go, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. And they might leave a comment or whatever. This image motivated people to do something. This image combined with the Hacking Democracy video motivated people that wanted to do something. People were shocked. It's like all of a sudden their eyes have been opened. And they shared it. And so I guess what I'd like to say is, this is real, folks. This fucking happened. This happened in our country. It happened a few days ago, where at least 700,000 voters, at least, probably 800,000 voters were stolen from the Republican frontrunner and given to other people. It's pretty shocking. It's pretty shocking. And the other thing I'd say is I also know it's real. I know it's real because in our gut as human beings, we know what truth is. And people saw this. They saw it was the truth. And it made them angry. And it made them concerned. And it made them upset. And they wanted to share it. So that's the first thing. The wisdom of people. People have wisdom. They recognize truth. And the second thing is, the second reason why I know it's real is it would have taken some pretty powerful forces to shut this down. I don't believe Facebook is politically motivated at their core. I think that if they were free to do their own thing, they would. I believe Facebook is being controlled by our government. And both the Democrats and the Republicans want Trump stopped. Because he represents real change. The FBI and the CIA and whoever else is embedded in Facebook to make sure it runs the way a government agency should run have pulled the strings on this. And you don't like to think about stuff like that, about how our media is being controlled by our government. But it is, all forms of media. You know, the FCC controls, what comes over the airwaves, even though the FCC was founded to control the airwaves because you had a certain number of frequencies, and when you only have like 5 frequencies to transmit, it makes sense that you have a FCC to regulate that, because there's a limit to the bandwidth. Does that make sense? Whereas the FCC should have no authority on the internet. They should have no authority on cable television because there's no airwaves involved. It's unlimited bandwidth. But yet they do. And so they exercise control over the TV. They're not exercising control over the internet, but you can see evidence that the government is controlling this type of thing. And it's scary. It's scary. So this is real, folks. This is real. They stole an election in Wisconsin. And if you're a Trump supporter, it's in your best interest to share this. Because if you don't, no one else will. It's up to us. It's up to us. I mean, personally, I think you should smear this information everywhere you can. Make them listen to you. Make them shut us down. Force it. Force the issue, because we're not going to have another Donald Trump in 4 years. You're not going to have this opportunity again. I mean, if you believe in this movement, it ain't coming again. You let this one go by and it's over. And Donald Trump is a wrecking ball. Donald Trump represents our first opportunity to look inside the books, to see what the fuck is going on Capitol Hill. We don't know. They pass bills and they don't allow us to read what's in them. The American people can't read what's in their secret communications. We don't know what they're doing. Donald Trump represents our ability as citizens to audit the whole system. And it's a top to bottom audit, and I believe the movement is much bigger than what the polls say. I think it's much, much larger than what the polls say. I think that's why he's drawing so many people. I think that's why he's terrifying them. And if they can just take an election anytime they want, what difference does it make? And if they can embarrass you into not telling your neighbors that you support Trump, what difference does it make? It's time for you to make some people angry. It's time for you to put a Trump sign in front of your house. It's time for you to post on Facebook that you support Donald Trump. It's time. It's time to come out of the woodwork. Because if you don't, they're going to take it. They're going to take it all. And they're going to smear this man and call him a racist and destroy him and, destroy his family, destroy his reputation. They're going to destroy him. So if you ever wanted to act, now's the time. Because I got to tell you, Wisconsin, you know, I've been, if you've been following Trumpgasm, you know what I posted about with Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago, that the whole race came down to Wisconsin. That's how important it was. Trump loses Wisconsin, he loses. Well, guess what? He just did. And from what I see, he didn't lose Wisconsin. It was taken. And it was taken in such a way. It was such a fuck you to all of us. It was such a fuck you. We'll do what we want to all of us. A 1 million vote Wisconsin means there's no way anybody won but Trump. Period. That's all it means. There's no way. And if they had the balls to do that with Bush versus Reagan in 1980, we wouldn't have had a President Reagan. We would have had a President Bush. You know, Reagan won Wisconsin. That was the last time you saw a 1 million vote Wisconsin. It was Ronald Reagan. Last time. And history could have been rewritten then, and if we allow this to stand, it's going to be rewritten again. They didn't allow history to be rewritten then. Someone has torn a page out of the history books and replaced Donald Trump wins Wisconsin in a landslide with Donald Trump loses Wisconsin in a landslide. Someone has done that to us. And if that doesn't piss you off, then you're not a fucking American. And if you're not motivated to do anything right now, well, you know, maybe I'm not the right speaker for this, but something's got to change. Something's got to change. And it all starts with you. Whoever's watching this. If you turn this video off and do nothing, well, it's over. But if you share it with 2 people, and one of them shares it with 2 people, and one of them shares it with 5 people, and one of them shares it with 100, all of a sudden it goes viral. And it's little individual decisions that make things go viral. And you have a choice whether to help it or you have a choice to kill it. And even if you got 2 friends, your choice is significant. So decide what you want to do. But, you know, nothing's ever going to change if you don't back this man, because there's no one else, and there's no one on the horizon. There's not another billionaire that's willing to do this. There's not another billionaire that believes what he believes. There's not another billionaire that isn't a globalist. I mean, who's going to save us? Mark Zuckerberg? I mean, Zuckerberg is the one taking this shit down. Who's going to save us? I mean, you know, and do we need to be saved? Yeah, well, we might. You know, we might need some help, because we're running against powerful forces. And I'd like to have a billionaire out in front, one that isn't bought and paid for, one that can say whatever needs to be said. Because every time he opens his mouth, they clobber him. And if he was a regular candidate, his funding would be gone. A regular candidate saying one of the things he said, they'd pull him off the airwaves. He'd be gone. You know, look at what happened to Pat Buchanan in 1996 after winning the New Hampshire primary. He couldn't get a dime. Couldn't get a dime. And it was much the same stuff. You know, close the borders, renegotiate our trade deals, put tariffs on countries that are taking advantage of us. I mean, it was much the same stuff. It's an America First platform. And Buchanan was a better speaker than Trump in a lot of ways. Gave better speeches, was sharper on a lot of the issues, because Pat Buchanan was a writer and in my opinion, a philosopher. But Donald Trump has a couple things that Pat Buchanan didn't have. Charisma. He's very likable, and money. Donald Trump is the man for these times. And I don't know. That's it.